Hey everyone, this is Crime Scene Analysis. I'm Angie.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Caroline.
And we are back with a brand new episode this week. Episode 201 has officially aired and we are through the dead zone.
Thank God.
Ah, jinx.
So, first of all, let's just take a minute to appreciate the fact that we have new content to discuss.
It's been so long.
It has been so long. It's been 84
long.
years.
I feel like we have beaten the season 1 content into the ground.
Yep.
Seriously. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't get sick of it, but
we did.
I mean, you can never really get sick of it, but
no. Yeah, we survived 2020 and we survived our first season-long hiatus. So
sure.
We've come a long way, guys.
We
give yourself
really
a pat
have.
on the back.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm sure my microphone's picking that up right now.
So we thought since we finally have kind of a full house, our regular scheduled crew here, that we would do some real quick introductions, like who we are, what we do in real life outside of podcast stuff. So I will start. My name is Angie. Like I said, I am a high school English teacher by day. I am a wife and mom of a 4-year-old by night, and an epically nerdy prodigal son and kind of superhero nerd person in my spare time. My kind of niche in the podcast focuses a lot on things that you would sort of do in terms of literature, like symbolism, theme, overarching stuff. And I also have a bit of a music nerd bone as well. I played cello for 12 years. I play piano and some other instruments. So I love to praise Nathaniel Bloom. He is one of my favorite people to discuss related to this podcast. So that's pretty much what I will offer throughout.
I'm Jess. I work in a copy center, but I don't actually have a job with what I went to college for. But that's all right. There's a whole group of people that are like that. But in my spare time, I'm a freelance artist. So I have a small business I'm trying to get off the ground. And like Angie, I am definitely a music nerd, although she has a lot more to bring to it than I do. I played the flute for 8 years, but I can understand musical terms and theory and whatnot. So that's always nice to nerd out with her. And I bring 2 areas of knowledge and interest to our little podcast here. I have degrees in biblical studies as well as a degree in Christian ministries. So I have a background in theology there. I'm not a theologian or anything, but I did go to school for it. So anytime we have any mention of something biblical, I'm totally going to nerd out on that. And in addition, I had intended to major in forensics before I actually went to college. So I have a large knowledge, I wouldn't say expertise, but a knowledge and a love of true crime, as well as the forensic science aspect of things. So when we do get to see that on screen, that's totally something I'm going to nerd out about as well.
Yes. All right. I guess I'll go. So I am Caroline. This is my first time getting to be recording live on the podcast. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that. So outside of this, I am a speech language pathologist, otherwise known as a speech therapist, otherwise known as the speech lady by some of my coworkers. It's fine. And I work in a medical setting with adults with a whole bunch of different populations and disorders. So that is definitely one of the things that I will be bringing to the table here. I have baseline practical medical knowledge in addition to my own specialized knowledge in the realm of communication. And there's obviously so much to unpack with that here with this show.
All right. So before we let's get going into the episode, we do want to talk about some cool things that are happening over here at the C.S.A. podcast. Mm-hmm. First of all, we have been extremely lucky in that we've got some Prodigal Son goodies from some of the more talented members of our fandom. And therefore, we are going to do some giveaways during the first month of shows. And for simplicity, we decided that the best way to do this was going to be to have a code word throughout the episode at some point. We will be sure to highlight what that code word is multiple times when it happens. And all you have to do is get on your Instagram or your Twitter and tweet out that code word. When you tweet that code word, tag us, Both of those social medias are at podcast C.S.A. Use the hashtag podcast C.S.A. and you're automatically entered. And for simplicity's sake as well, we are going to cut off the code word posting time at 8 p.m. on Mondays, Eastern Standard Time. So sorry, international folks, we love you, but I didn't do all those calculations. I apologize.
We're not
so
math
when that
people.
happened, I am an English teacher. I am not doing math.
Nope,
Let me just
no
tell
math
you.
for me.
So that's how that's going to work. Super simple. Tag us, post the keyword. All the names will go into a randomizer. And you're going to get some pretty cool Prodigal Son swag, which is always nice.
Mhm.
Let's go. Are we ready? I am so
yeah.
excited.
Here we
Let's
go.
start.
Oh my God.
All right. So 201 title, It's All in the Execution. And boy, was it.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, let's get some of the specifics out of the way. We have written by our two wonderful show creators, Sam and Chris. Obviously, they had to jump us into the brand new season after all the shenanigans that happened last season. Directed by Antonio Negrete, who I think did a fantastic job. And I will praise, we'll all be praising him down the line. But wonderfully, wonderfully done. I was a little prepared for a black title card because the two major kind of altering episodes for Malcolm last season were black title cards. So I thought, okay, here we go, something's happening. And then I was shocked. I was like, oh, man, Malcolm was on a ledge. Let's talk about the symbolism of Malcolm on a ledge.
Yes.
Which is my next thing. We open with Malcolm on a ledge.
Yes.
Just the symbolism of him on a ledge. First of all, he is on a mental ledge.
Yes. Yep. And to be honest, when we first opened up with him like that, and even in the promo footage when we saw him on a ledge, I got really nervous that he was on a ledge for a totally different reason.
Yeah, like I was super concerned that the couple of things we saw where he's talking about the bad year, and I'm like, who is he talking to that he's basically saying his goodbyes or something like that? And I was like, no.
Yeah, because it sounded like, it was one of those like last words. I'll tell it to anybody who will listen, and then that's what concerned me. And then, but thankfully we have this, who I wrote in my notes that he looks just like Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco, who walks out, and
That's awesome.
literally, when I was watching
Caroline,
it,
that makes me so happy.
I know. I knew you'd appreciate it. I knew you'd appreciate it because Jess and I both love, what is it, like punk rock or pop rock? I don't even know.
Pop punk.
Yes.
That whole area.
Like he just comes out and he's in like a suit or something, and I was like, Brendan Urie? Like, excuse me? So I'm like, oh, so he's just gonna tell his final words to Brendan Urie before he just jumps off.
I mean, if there's someone to talk to before you go,
yes,
might as well be Brendan Urie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do want to give that actor a shout out. His name is Hiram Delgado. I looked it up. I really appreciated how he can kind of flip the switch.
Yeah.
He went from super nice, and then his eyes turned into like, boom, I am the devil. And I was like, nicely done. Yes, he did a great job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of appreciated, there was a good section of this scene where it was Malcolm informing new viewers what the hell's going on. He goes through this whole thing like, my dad's a serial killer. My life's been kind of crazy. He's all in my head, blah, blah, blah. We, as the previous year's fans, totally know this, but they have to. In the first couple seasons of a show, you have to continually remind people what's going on. And it kind of reminds me of going back to my days in the Criminal Minds fandom. I think that whole first season, they re-explained what an unsub was every episode over and over. And I'm like, I know. But that's kind of what we've done. So we've caught everyone up. If you missed an episode, if you've never watched the show, but they did it in an organic way. It didn't feel like previously on, and then they just listed everything that went down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in my notes, I wrote therapy time ? I was like, I know you're stalling Malcolm, but are you turning this into a therapy session?
Honestly, that's also what I had wondered if this scene was about. Like, this is him. I honestly started to get anxious and think that he was going to tell his big secret to this random dude.
Ooh.
going along the lines of thinking like, are these his last words? I was starting to get anxious and think, is he going to fully tell this Brendan Urie dude everything that he's done? Like that, my heart was pounding.
Don't do it.
Yep.
Which I mean is something to consider, because he can't tell his therapist any of this stuff. Like Tom Payne himself has talked about his only go-to discussion is with Martin. And we find out, kind of coming up in a second, that he has not spoken to Martin in months.
Yep.
So he was living in his own head.
Yes. And I also wrote down that one of the best lines was when Martin gets on the phone and he's like, I have sensational news. And Malcolm says, please say it's cancer. There was something so beautiful about
that was a great joke. I appreciated our season 2 introduction to kind of almost the rest of the team without Gil. Danny's head pops out and I'm like, yes, here we go. Idrissa had a bondage phase. Of course she did. I mean, that was a kind of nice surprise.
Yes. Again, hats off to those one-liners from the writers.
I know.
True story.
After cuddle partying, she moves straight to a bondage phase, and it's like, all right, girl, you do you, boo. I'm
Clearly
proud of
there
you.
was a progression in there somewhere where she went from cuddle party to 50 Shades.
She snapped.
Oh, and she's such a little Care Bear. Like, I can't imagine that she would have gone through some sort of phase like this, but it pleases me. I'm not gonna lie.
It's always the ones you'd never expect, Angie. It's always the ones. Yep.
All right. So at the 5:03 mark, we have Malcolm and Ainsley talking, and there's this really cool moment where we kind of start to learn how long has it been, what all does Ainsley know. We know from previews that Malcolm tells her it was me, but in terms of the episode, this has not occurred yet. So we have that kind of conversation of how are you handling? Things have been different. I know you're not doing well. And we're starting to learn about Ainsley, how much she really knows versus what he's told her. And just to appreciate Nathaniel Bloom and all of his glory and genius, all throughout the previous season, we have this We're the Same theme. That was the title of the theme. And it's the kind of continued main theme over and over, and it shows up in different ways throughout the first season. Sometimes it's very aggressive when it comes to scenes with Martin and where he's manipulating Malcolm, and sometimes it'll be like a piano ballad if it's just weaving in Martin's presence as a more metaphorical sense where Malcolm is talking about him and things like that. And I mean, Bloom found 1,000 different ways to kind of weave this throughout the first season, which was amazing, but it was always kept within scenes that were related to Malcolm and Martin. They didn't always have to be present together, but when Martin's kind of hold on Malcolm was being discussed, this theme would show up. And I absolutely adore the fact that this theme starts to play in kind of a really chill melody kind of way as Ainsley is talking to Malcolm. Because this is the first time that she is the source of his epic stress and problems right now. She is the source of his mental whatever. This is one of the things I told you I was going to lose my brain. Like, I could not handle the fact that
no,
this
please
occurred.
go off, because I didn't even
seriously,
think of this.
I'm reining myself in right now so bad because I want to just read.
No, do it, Angie. Go. Go feral.
So I lost it. I was just like, oh my God. And I'm like rewinding and listening and rewinding. And it's not when Malcolm's talking. It's when Ainsley's talking. Oh. When she says the phrases, you're something about the phrase of like, you know, you're not the same, or you haven't been the same since that happened. It's the do, 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 do. And I was like, oh my God. And I lost it. It made me so happy that we have now shifted. This transition is now Ainsley and Martin get this We're the Same theme, because they're part of the stressors. And I'm just like, God, Nathaniel Bloom, you know, this is why I'm on Twitter going, allow me to praise you for 16 pages, Nathaniel Bloom.
Yes, exactly. Like, I had never even noticed that, but that makes so much sense now. Now, see, this is also why I love us, because now I need to immediately go back and rewatch this like 500 times just to listen for it. Oh my God.
And there was only one other moment in season 1 when Malcolm was in the hospital in Annihilator when he had been bitten and poisoned, and Ainsley is his contact and she shows up. There was about a 4-second stretch where she's talking and you kind of get like a doo-doo, and then it stopped. And I wrote about it in my analysis from 100 years ago. And I was like, oh, for a second. And I was looking back, having seen the whole season at that point, and I'm like, clues I missed, things I didn't know were happening. And they're genius, man. I'm telling you, the musical genius of this guy is just through the roof.
Absolutely.
So this was the first time that it fully fleshed out, and it played while she's talking, and I went, here we go.
Here we go. Yep. We are not in season 1 anymore, baby.
Yeah, this is big girl territory right now.
Yep, literally.
I'm pretty sure I spent a long time freaking out in your DMs, like when I was reading all of those analysis with every musical point, especially when you identified the fact that everybody had their own theme and you identified what Martin's was.
That's the kind of stuff that just gives me the full Frisian goosebumps, man.
Yes.
Like, here we go. Let's do it. In this same scene, we do finally get the flashback of our first moments of seeing what happened post finale last year, and we get the I did this, Ainsley, I killed him.
Oh, poor baby boy, why do you do this? But
Yeah,
okay.
About that.
All right, so should we unpack that then? And
Yeah, please go right ahead.
Because I mean, I don't even know what I thought when we found out in the preview footage that Malcolm was going to take the fall for this. I think that my mind just went totally blank, and I think so much over this summer I was debating on whether, who was going to find out, is he going to call JT and Danny and Gil? Well, not Gil, obviously, but who is Malcolm going to let know? Is Jessica going to find this out? I was more thinking about how is this going to go down than it was a matter of thinking, okay, he's going to cover this up, but Ainsley did do this, and he, is just going to hide the fact, like, oh, just, something happened. Let's just forget about it. Let's push your memory down. But I was not expecting him to say, no, this was me, the person who was not covered in any blood at all. This was something I did. It just, I don't know. I was stunned by this. And now I think that's just, it's really got my brain, all the gears in my head turning and just thinking, how is the rest of this season going to go then? Because we know that guilt is something that Malcolm really struggles with, and his emotions that he keeps inside himself, that is his biggest Achilles heel. And now he's got a huge one, and it impacts not only his sister, but him too, because now he's aiding and abetting, or whatever term you want to use for this.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that I remember reading in one of the millions of articles that I buried my head in right after the finale, Sam and Chris, the creators, they specifically said, they used the word like ripple effect. How is this rippling out from Ainsley and from Malcolm, and how does it affect each relationship with, every character and everything that goes on?
Yeah.
It's kind of a divisive thing right now in the fandom, and I'm going to try to stick, to positivity here.
Yes.
A lot of people are kind of very frustrated with, where is this going to go from here? Like, how could this possibly, close out or find closure in any way that doesn't put him in prison? But I mean, I got to be honest, when they chose to have that finale, something had to happen.
Yeah.
It was either we immediately lose Halston to prison.
Yep.
And then is it him visiting her and Martin in prison? Like what all's going down there? Which reminds me, let me put a pin in this for 1 second. I love how we came up with a 30-second excuse for why Martin is now back in Claremont.
Oh my God. I just
We prevented the spread of COVID. Like I again, writers, no disrespect whatsoever. I get that you have to have him in a place where we can have contact. I get it. We have a pandemic going, might as well use it. I get it. But it was definitely one of those like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
We're just gonna roll with it.
I know. Yeah, that's exactly my reaction too, especially when he's talking about how, like, and of course, like, it's Martin, so he's going to chat himself up and make himself seem like
Of course.
the best thing since sliced bread. And he's talking about contact tracing, and I'm like, you were a surgeon? What do you know the context. But like, whatever. It was
It's
just
true.
like, I'm going to suspend my disbelief. I'm just going to roll with it because, hey, I was kind of getting like, when Martin was in Gen Pop, I was like, all right, where are we going to go from here? Because this is a little like, I'm
With
not
a
used to
bounty
it.
on his head. Yeah,
Yes,
like
exactly. Like, I'm kind of uncomfortable.
so to come back to the finale and something had to happen.
Yes.
Either they're going to cover it up and we're going to try to keep all of our characters and work through that, or Halston was instantly going to be half off the show. We were going to lose Ainsley after this epic moment.
Yes.
Seats were out. So I get it. If that is what Chris and Sam went to Fox with as their plan, which it absolutely was, then you have to figure out a way to roll with that wave. And I talked about this a little bit during the teaser, but it's a perfect new stressor for Malcolm.
Yeah.
Because we lost Sophie, we lost the girl in the box. He was kind of coming to terms with Martin a little bit, I think, on a smidge, and kind of pulling away and saying whatever. So we need that thing that's going to torture the lead. And boy, is this not a thing that's going to torture the crap out of the lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So I get it's divisive, but it's a psycho murder show. Like, I mean, how angry you're going to get about things that are a little outlandish sometimes in a show that involves chopping people's hands off and sex dungeons and guillotines and all of these other things.
Yes.
And the other thing we have to realize is we are getting one piece of a very messed up 13-piece puzzle at the moment.
Ooh.
So yes, I'm a little like worried about how this is going to play out, but at the same time, we've watched these writers do some pretty crazy stuff in 20 episodes, especially with 2 of them being cut in a pandemic. So I'm putting all my faith in them right now, and I'm just going to let them take us for a ride.
And this is a part where I think it's kind of good for us to be fans, and we're allowed to be fans right now. We don't have all the executive decision making. We don't have to write our way out of this. So this is a part where I think that people who are kind of feeling, I mean, I myself was very shocked and confused by this whole decision, but I am just going to be a fan and say, okay, this is not what I would have done, but whatever. I'm here to watch it. I'm not going to turn it off just for this reason. So take me somewhere. Let's see where it goes.
Especially with it being the first episode of the season. You know, this isn't like the penultimate episode and then how the heck are they wrapping this up, blah, blah, blah. Like we have an arc. We have over what would have been half of a season coming to us. So I understand that having the whole break be so long and maybe some people just kind of kept building up and now it felt underwhelming to them or something. But I think sometimes it's okay to just step back and like enjoy your show. Like it's going to be, it'll work out. And if you decide it's not for you, then I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think you have to just, it's their call. They're professionals and you either trust that they know what they're doing or you don't. And that's kind of how it's going to have to play out.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving right along, at almost 6 minutes, we got to hear Bellamy Young sing.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's right. Yes,
I am intrigued if she played the piano. Again, the music nerd in me wants to know. Maybe we'll have to at Bellamy and find out if she played her own piano or not. But I felt like we have a good shot at her actually having played that. So that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
The next thing I hit is a couple minutes later. We are chit-chatting. Loved the pill joke coming from Mama Whitley. But we talk about Estonia. And for those of us that don't know where the heck Estonia is or what Lake Peipus, I think was the correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
Supposedly this is where Endicott's body has magically shown up. And that is actually, so I looked it up. It's the 5th largest body of water in Europe, just in case y'all were wondering.
Thank you for telling us.
I deep dived it for everyone. And it happens to be on the border of Russia and Estonia. So if that helps anyone with a little bit of geography, it doesn't help me a ton because I'm not great with European geography. Sorry, European people.
I had no idea where Estonia is.
But at least we have kind of an idea there. My bigger question is, how in the blue hell did we get a body to Estonia? And
that's what I want to know.
I mean, is it like a flat rate box? Did we just UPS, like,
Yeah,
postal
just
service, if it
UPS.
fits, it ships? Like, what
Yep.
are we doing?
It was you know what? It was DHL, because I have ordered things internationally and it's DHL that does it. And DHL
Wow,
has
good for
sent me some
you.
crazy stuff. Oh yeah, no, this was like an expensive $200 costume I will never buy again. But like they somehow they make it work. So maybe it was just like a trunk of luggage and they're like, hey, this belongs to some rich dude. Don't touch it. It's,
Here's the thing though, it was found in a lake. So that means at some point he had a connection in Estonia that completed this deed for him.
he had a college roommate. I just
Well, honestly, yeah. Where's Vijay? Is Vijay in Estonia looking at some watch
there we
heists?
go.
Like, what's going on with Vijay right now?
But
So not only now there's a third person complicit in this murder.
Yeah,
Just throwing that out there.
I know.
Either that or they literally backed the truck up to the lake and just dumped it out.
Just for this little under the table, I'll like wire. What is it called when they like send money internationally? I'll, like wire you like $3,000 if you just magically make this truck and
Don't
everything
ask any
in it
questions,
disappear.
just throw it in the lake. Like,
Exactly.
That's all I want you to do.
Yep, just repress and deny.
I was very intrigued by all of this. And I appreciate later Martin's just sheer, like, how did you do that? Like, I'm thinking the same thing. How
Yes.
did you do this?
Yeah.
I want logistics. How many days did it take to get there? I want that information.
This is why we have to be fans now. We have to just sit back and find out. Like, please tell us how the actual hell did you do any of this?
Truth. I'm very intrigued by this. So my next mark is at 8:27. We finally get to get some discussion with our Danny girl, and boy, thank you God, Sam and Chris, for some of these lines. Global pandemic, systemic racism. It's a perfect time to be a young Black woman and a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Amen, sister.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Amen to that. I'm gonna go way more into this down the road.
Yes.
But I am so intrigued and interested in the fact that we have 3 cops that are all people of color as leads on our show. And we'll talk a little bit later about going into this particular storyline, but it's such a unique perspective to have as kind of a both sides situation between the whole, police brutality and Black Lives Matter and this, and they're right in the middle of it. And I'm really intrigued as how we have this perspective and how it can be played out. And I love that they're in constant contact with the actors and Frank and Aurora and all this, talking about it. It's amazing. Frank posted this really neat interview because I can't remember, forgive me, person on Twitter, someone had asked, like, I really hope they're consulting with you about all this, whatever. And he posted an interview. In that interview, Sam and Chris were very upfront, like, listen, we're 2 white men. We don't have a perspective on this. We know we want to talk about it. We know we have to talk about it. And what do we do? And so I love that they were just completely open, like, look, this is not us. We need to know. Like I said, I will delve a little bit more into that, but I love that they were just, let's do it. Like, this is something we have to address. And I appreciated that a lot.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Immediately following, guess who gets a lollipop?
Our girl, but it's not lemon lime this time.
It is not. So is there a symbolic difference between lemon lime and cherry?
It is red. Are we sure that it's cherry though? Because
It
I
is
was
red of
thinking,
some sort. Yeah, I guess we will
was-
claim a red flavor.
Is
Yes,
it
I don't
strawberry?
know.
Is it fruit punch? Like
I don't know. And what is the symbolism of fruit punch? I mean, come on, fruit punch. There's got to be something.
I mean, it was
I might be
red.
overanalyzing that a little.
We can go into Jess. Please talk about color theory.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, come on, artists. What's the difference between magenta, mahogany, and pink?
I mean, they're all warm colors.
And she did have a very warm smile for him when he gave it to her too. And
agreed.
she even like looks down at the lollipop before she goes underneath the police tape. And it just,
It was very cute. And there's a lot of callbacks in this episode.
Yes.
There are a lot of just like little bitty things that will hit as we go. And touching on, there's something I noticed throughout this whole episode. Through the majority of the episode, Malcolm is in this same suit. Even though it does not look like it, it is in daylight. It is this bright green. I'll have to put a picture up on our social media. I'll do that.
yes, please.
It's under like a bluish gray charcoal overcoat, but it is Lucky Charms green under there. Like, I'm not kidding you. It It is very green. And I kept looking at it in the daylight scene and I'm like, wow, that's a green suit. And I remember Tom saying, you know, like there's a suit shortage right now. There's not. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is one of those, it's a good suit. We'll save it in case we have to use. I don't know.
We'll mess
not
with
that
the
the man looks
lighting.
bad in anything. Put him in a feed sack. He would look just fine.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm looking and I'm like, this is the brightest suit we have ever seen. Whatsoever. And then for the entire rest of the episode, either the lighting on set or the editing afterwards, it looks almost navy, but it's the same tie, it's the same suit the whole time. So I wonder if they filmed this, saw the dailies and went, we have got to figure something out with this suit. Like, this is a little too intense for Malcolm Bright.
Wow, Angie,
It was insane. I'm a loser, guys. I see this stuff.
All the stuff. No, I appreciate it. And honestly, I would have done more. I ended up only doing one rewatch because work was wild this week, but I would go back and do more.
Lines, boo. We forgive you a little, for goodness sake.
I'm sorry, but like I want to rewatch
Saving lives and analyze this episode for God's sake.
Do both.
So the next thing I hit was just, I adored the childlike excitement with which Tom Paine delivers his, like, it's a historical guillotine. Like, I thought he was gonna like wet his pants. He was so happy. And it just made me so happy the way he delivered it. It was not bright at all. It was like a kid at Christmas. Like,
yes.
Like, he was so pumped. It made me so incredibly happy. I could not take it. And I know, Caroline, you've got some deep dive guillotine research.
Yes. Yep. Oh, perfect segue there.
You're welcome.
Yes, because I had the same childlike excitement when I saw that too, to which I had to sort of take a step back during the commercial afterwards and think, you just got excited over a guillotine? What the hell is wrong with people? Who are these people who both admonish and then condone violence and murder whenever it suits them?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, moving on.
To have this sort of simultaneous both fascination, repulsion with death and mayhem and crime and all that, it reminds me of a certain someone in the show who is also having the same conundrum internally. Or maybe has he been having this struggle all along? Who's to say? Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
I was kind of amazed that he said the line something like, oh, France like demolished all of them in 81.
Yep.
And so I looked up, I was like, you're telling me they decapitated somebody with a guillotine in 81?
Oh yes. Yep. Because
like I was like,
so this execution was the last public execution of someone in France. Afterwards, they continued to use the guillotine, but it was behind prison walls. So it was still going on, but the public was not around to see it.
And what year was that, you said?
1939. When Malcolm was then talking about the further history of it, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I was like geeking over about with this show.
I took that later date. I took that later date. What was it? 81?
Yes.
I took that as, okay, they stopped using guillotines in the 30s, but took like 50 years to destroy these tools of execution. Not that they were actually still using them for 50 more years.
The last actual execution by guillotine while private, as Caro did, was 1977.
Oh, okay.
And okay, so I'm going to butcher this name because I'm not sure that it's French completely. And even if it was, I would not be able to pronounce it correctly.
Go for it.
It looks like Hamida. And then the last name kind of has the DJ beginning, like the Django sound. The Jandobi, perhaps, could be.
Okay.
A convicted murderer in France was the final person in 1977 to be beheaded by guillotine. And then in 81, they were no longer doing this. And it blew my mind. I was like, so like in the 70s, like
the 70s,
Rolling Stones are at the top of the charts and we're still cutting off heads with a guillotine. Like, what? It was so bizarre.
That's actually pretty terrifying.
It was pretty crazy. Yeah,
exactly.
So at the end of this scene, and I just want to say right now, this is in no way a slight to JT because he's trying to run, the major crimes unit. Everything's going insane. I absolutely love that Bright brings up that he knows someone that's dabbled in this. And JT is just like, sweet, cool, run it down.
Yep.
Goes. And then Adrisa, who I love, it's the surgeon, right? Like she knows immediately, and she kind of makes that connection. And had Gil been the guy there, Gil would have known immediately as well and said, don't worry about it. We can run down records. It's not a big deal. So I really like that moment, not as a slight to JT, but just he has stuff on his plate. He does not have time to worry about what's the cryptic meaning of what Bright just said. And he's trying to handle just this whole bonanza of stuff. And I kind of like that they did that. One, it gave us a moment to see Adrisa is a little bit more connected to him, which we know. We know that she's a little closer, especially after kind of the assistance that she offered him at the end of last season. Yes. But it also showed like JT's just not there. He'll get there. The bromance is alive, but he's not quite there yet in that case.
Yeah. And I actually picked up on that line, and I actually made a point of writing that I liked that they gave Adrisa that line, the writers, because we've seen multiple points where she's infatuated with him and absolutely, like, in a way I would say attracted to his intelligence and just like in the moment and, with him spouting stuff off. And there's been multiple lines that she's had where she hasn't quite read the room and she said something goofy and hasn't understood the emotional toll that it's now causing him. And instead, it was more of a serious line for her. She was actually understanding that that's Martin. That means he has to go back and talk to Martin now.
Yeah, it clicked for
I really
her.
appreciate
that. Was really nice.
That was kind of like because I know one of the things that like a lot of people say about Adrisa is she's like, super goofy and whatnot. So I really like that they gave her that line to connect with him.
I love the fact that she brings the levity and the humor.
Oh yeah.
And I know that some people are kind of a little sad, annoyed that it's kind of like an Asian cliche sometimes to be like the funny sidekick, ha ha ha. But I feel like they're starting to kind of shift, like they're still letting her be comedic relief because the show needs it. We need moments where we're laughing every now and then. But then they're also kind of showing like she is learning to read the room, like you said, like she knows that, and it's pretty cool. This next moment is my second moment where I absolutely lost my ever-loving mind. It's at 12 minutes and 57 seconds, and it is as Malcolm is returning to Claremont to talk to his father. It is almost a shot-for-shot redo of the pilot.
Angie, I noticed this too. Oh my God.
Yes, it is. So we have this, the music is happening at the exact same moments. Then we see a fuzzy Malcolm, like unfocused, walking down the row. It focuses in, the door opens. Martin's like, who is it? And it is almost verbatim, just enough to be different as necessary, with the exception of we don't get the my boy at the end. But I as it's happening, I'm like, oh my God, I have to write this down. Like I'm like losing my mind because it is just all the way up to the music cue, the music crescendos and swells. It's like, and then it stops. And I'm like, my boy. And then it didn't happen. I was like, but I lost it. I was like, God. And again, Nathaniel Bloom, apparently he's like my music God. I'm just going to pray to him on the weekends.
Yeah, you might as well.
But it was amazing. And I love kind of going back to the interview with the whole cast where Michael Sheen was basically like, well, Ainsley's bumped up now. She's number one. He's no longer. So he didn't get the my boy. No. It would have been a my girl if Ainsley had walked through the door, but he did not get the my boy. That was a huge nerd moment for me. Yes. It was amazing.
I'm glad that we shared this moment, Angie.
I'm so glad.
This is probably the only time where I was actually cued into the music because and I think it was because it was matching shot for shot with the music. Otherwise, I would have just been like, whatever. But yeah, yep.
Yeah, I didn't write that like in my notes or anything, but something like clicked in my head where I knew that was exactly what was happening.
Oh yes, yeah. If you had seen season 1 and you were as invested in this show as we are, or maybe even if you were just like a baseline
like
fan,
normal invested,
I think you would have
not
normal
invested, normal invested.
You like the show a normal amount, like, oh, I like this show on Tuesdays, not like us. I think that you would have picked up on this.
It was pretty awesome. And then I went back and kind of rewatched the pilot one. I was like, man, like it is as close as it's going to be without being a dead reshot back and forth. So that was a pretty sweet moment.
Mm-hmm.
Moving along, we have finally our first shot of Captain Gill of the USS NYPD. I like, some people are annoyed with the time jump. Some people are like, why don't we get more blah, blah, blah. But this is the only way we get Lou Diamond Phillips back before mid-season of a 13-episode show.
Mm-hmm.
We have to fast forward to let his recovery happen, or it becomes just outlandish that 3 weeks later he's back after being stabbed and half dead.
Yes.
So it has to happen. I also think it has to happen because otherwise they're in quarantine, if you're going to be logical, and if we're going to follow any type of real life, which they do mention in the show. And I think it makes sense, knowing now that Malcolm has not talked to Martin, that we're months, who knows the exact number yet, but we are multiple months into him having no one to talk to with this information, to deal with. And we get the introduction of a roommate. Caroline.
All right, before I start going off, does anybody else have anything that they would like to say about Jer Bear, as Martin calls
I
him?
do want to say that I enjoyed them including a roommate as a type of thing that would bug Martin, in terms of him going from this like penthouse room by himself with the fancy rug, and now he has to have a roommate. Like how peasant of him to have someone in there. And it worked well as a foil for them to be able to speak freely the way they needed. As you're about to go into, I feel like it could have been done differently. But I liked adding that. I'll let you finish this sentence.
First, I want to say that in addition to my job, which is largely with people with disabilities, I myself have a disability. I have ADHD. I am going to use people first language, people first being people with disabilities, talking about the person before their condition, and then use identity first language like a disabled person. I'm going to use the two interchangeably because people who are also in the disability community, for the most part now, at least people around my age, like say millennials, are using identity first language now. But as a clinician, I was taught to use people first language. So I'm going to use the term interchangeably. I say this because I'm not trying to be offensive. I would gladly cite sources if anyone would like to read more about it. But so, yes, I'm coming into this part of the show with that perspective of someone who works with people with disabilities and as a disabled person myself. We have Martin returning from Hoosgow, as he calls it, which I had to look up because I had never heard that term. That is slang for prison, by the way. Am I just so young that I don't recognize that term?
No, I also Googled it, so you're fine. It's not just you.
I was like, what is he talking about? Anyways, so he returns from prison to find out that he's got a roommate who is engrossed by cartoons and who presents with what society would deem to be childish behaviors, like sitting cross-legged on his bed and throwing a shoe at Malcolm. And at one point, Martin even says also he's a moron. Martin clearly seems to me to be using this word the way that it was once more commonly used as a term for someone with an intellectual disability, and that we classify by a bunch of different criteria, but it includes having a low IQ. It's the way that Martin says moron and his tone with which he uses it that makes it clear to me that he's being condescending and purposefully offensive and, quite honestly, ableist. Not out of character, I guess, for Martin as it is, but it was also seeing it in this show that sort of took me back a little bit, especially because of everything else that panned out in the rest of the episode, which we'll get in later. And as a matter of fact, I really can't tell what conditions, if at all, Jerry has. Does he have a traumatic brain injury, which is more commonly seen in adults? Does he have an intellectual disability that he's had since he was a child? Does he have aphasia, or which is a condition that impacts your language? Does he have autism? Does he have some other developmental disability? I can't really tell because of how little screen time he has. Let's jump a little bit later to, and here's my timestamp, to about 26:20, which is where my mouse told me we were at.
Okay.
When Martin wakes up and electrocutes Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts off by saying, "Sorry, Jer, it's not you, it's me." And so in my head, I was thinking, of course it's you narcissistic, ableist twat. But in other news, to everyone's surprise, Jerry speaks in what we would consider to be a socially acceptable way. He wakes up after Mr. David is like, "What the hell just happened here?" To which he says, "Oh, I don't know. I felt a jolt." And he's talking in, again, the way that most people would expect an adult to talk to. And he's even saying to Martin, "Just do the words that I'm saying make sense to you?" And Martin's like, "Yes." And Martin, of course, calls this new development in Jerry's language a miracle. So I have had almost 6 years total of higher education in my field. And all of those 6 years collectively have taught me that there are currently no treatments for conditions like whatever Jerry has, including things like autism or traumatic brain injury, that you can treat through electroconvulsive therapy. And again, calling back to season 1, when Malcolm is talking with the psychiatrist Simon, that's generally something that ECT is generally only used with people who have depression that is resistant to treatment, or who are having episodes of mania. It is very rarely used in general. And you would think that even a cardiothoracic surgeon would know that. But,
of course. But it's going to magically do some type of miracle heal of your verbal issues of some kind, according to him. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's that suspension of disbelief again.
The simple logic of the whole scene is a little, okay, suspension of disbelief there.
Yeah.
But you're completely right. There's definitely kind of and whether they're trying to play that as it's a Martin situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can, of course, because we know that Martin's an egomaniac regardless, and that he's going to brand any therapy tool as, his own invention. Because the man really needs to sit down. But anyways, my point is, why is Jerry in this episode? I've been removed from the episode entirely. To which I would like to end with, if your isms aren't intersectional, especially because disability doesn't discriminate on any basis, then we need to talk about it. And that's on that. Off my soapbox.
That's okay. Well said and well deserved soapbox, I think. I'm sure, we're not the only people that felt that way while watching it. So
exactly. So yeah, don't come for
so
me,
we did jump ahead a little bit because those two scenes related to Jerry have kind of some stuff in the middle. I'm going to jump back to 1701 while Danny is in with Gil talking to him. We see a moment where she's kind of very, she kind of chokes on the phrase "you almost died." She does not finish it, but we know where that phrase was going. And I love that. I love that we got to see Danny be a little bit more emotional. Yep. We kind of really get the, I deserve to be here. I'm equally as badass as everyone else, Danny, which heck yeah, she is. But I think it's nice to flex a little bit of more emotional muscle for Aurora because we know she has it. What I want to really focus on is the transcript of the letter from Jessica on this table here.
Here we go.
So there's not a lot. There's not a lot there. And I kind of fill in the end of some sentences based on what's going to be logical. The first thing you can see is mid-sentence. So it starts, this is the content, and then we can discuss. We start off with the phrase "long," and I'm counting, and then we don't see what must be the days until we can see each other again, and then you see a XO Jessica. So clearly she's had some time away from him because it seems as though counting the days we see each other again, they've been separated for a little while, whether that was because of his condition or just schedules didn't work out, whatever. But honestly, the thing that I caught the most, and I don't know if I just didn't catch it in the first season, did we hear her full address at all in the first season of the Whitley house?
No.
So I caught the
don't
corner
think
of the
so.
envelope because it has the
Oh.
JW monogram. And I caught the corner and it says that their full address is 3 East 88th Street, Manhattan. Naturally, I Googled this.
Yes! The entire fandom is just like running there right now.
Yes.
It is the Guggenheim Museum. That is the address that they gave. It's the Guggenheim.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that is, I mean, it has to be deliberate. You don't run a show like this and pick an address in Manhattan with the Google Maps plethora that's available. So I don't know if this was one of the writers has a huge, art love, or if they're saying like they're the rich Whitleys, so we're going to give them the Guggenheim as their, either way, it has to be intentional, but totally cool that like that's the address they went for, which brings us to God bless this actor that plays Izzy the rock star, man.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, first of all,
Yeah.
I felt like he hit like the washed up 70s Brit rocker
Yes.
on all
Mhm.
points. And in fact, his name, shout out to Jeremy Crutchley, nicely done, my good man, an American actor delivering that British accent.
Wow.
Not too shabby.
Props.
And props to hair and makeup and wardrobe on this man. He looks like he stuck his finger in a light socket. Like
Yes!
it is amazing, on point. And the set design of this whole house. There's a lamp made out of an electric guitar. There's cheetah print furniture. There's red velvet drapes. I mean, it screams 80s hairband rock star guy. Like it is just, I love it. The music nerd in me really, really appreciated it. Which leads us into, I believe, Jess is going to talk about us some forensic stuff. Go ahead.
So when they are at Izzy's mansion, this is where we find the guillotine that they've been searching for. This was the connection that Martin gave them. So we see this massive wooden historic object just on a pedestal in the middle of this room.
Mhm.
And first off, Malcolm's completely awestruck. And that was really nice
one
to
is.
see.
Same.
Because like I do the same thing and nerd out over history and biblical stuff and art and music. And yeah, so that was nice to see. But like I said, I have an inclination towards true crime and some knowledge in forensics. And I have a habit of watching crime shows and then yelling at the TV for what I'm watching because there's so many things that happen that almost are never true. This one, not so much, but I still, I couldn't help it. This is the only bit of forensics we really see in this episode. So immediately I started harping on it. I was like, yep, this is mine. So Malcolm pulls out a bottle of luminol. All right, luminol is a fluorescent chemical that will react with blood. We see it. It is one of the most common tools used in any C.S.A. kit, in any C.S.A. show. There's so many things that show up in C.S.A. shows and crime shows that actually don't function like they do in reality, but this one does function the right way. It is used properly for the most part. So Malcolm, we see him spraying for a few seconds and he like mostly sprays it on the blade and then like maybe on the sides. And then once the lights go out, boom, there is glowing blue stuff everywhere. So at first I was like, first of all, Malcolm did not have enough luminol in that bottle for the amount of blood that is everywhere. Yes, so exactly. I know, like I said, suspension of disbelief, but it just gets me. But also there was way too much light in that room still. So luminol doesn't actually need any light source whatsoever. A lot of the times when luminol is sprayed on a TV show, they pull out their black light and there it is. No,
which is what I thought.
Yeah, you actually don't need a UV blacklight source in order to detect that. So blacklight itself will detect bodily fluids and certain like stains and whatnot in the absence of light without a chemical, but that's not how blood works. So luminol is actually not a liquid. So luminol starts off in its purest form as little yellow crystals. So luminol itself doesn't do a thing. It's when you mix it with hydrogen peroxide and a base, which is the opposite of an acid, and you mix those together with the luminol, it then has the ability to react with blood. And so that's why we see it glowing blue. So that will only react with a catalyst. It reacts with the hemoglobin that's in blood. So if you spray it on water, it's not going to do anything. If you spray it on the wall and there's nothing there, it's not going to glow blue. But it'll react with the blood, and that's the most common way to find the blood. So the scientific word for that reaction is chemoluminescence. So we have bioluminescence, which is a natural phenomenon that happens in plankton. It's very often seen. I haven't seen it. I want to see it in real life, but you can see it in the ocean and in lakes and in swamps.
And in creepy documentaries on Animal Planet at 10 o'clock at night.
It's just organic, material organisms glowing, just because of that's how energy is given off. But this energy is given off in luminol as a blue glow. And it'll react with horseradish. Yeah, that's actually very true. Thank you, NCIS, first of all, for that knowledge, because they did correctly use that in a storyline when they were looking for blood. That's definitely a pretty funny thing.
Izzy was into some crazy horseradish king.
So there's blood.
We should spray the dungeon and see what was going on down there.
Oh my goodness.
This episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy brought to you by Jess.
Brought to you by Jess and Luminol.
So that's my little forensic and science nerding out.
Nicely done. So immediately following, we actually head down toward the old sex dungeon, that everybody has in their basement. No
Just
big
casual.
deal. Yep. And shit, I have to pause because my Mac is about to die.
No.
Brett, keep that. That was just. Did you just rhyme there?
Oh.
You did.
We have to keep it then, Brett.
Brett, keep it.
Okay, Mac is plugged in. Moving along. For the second time, we get to see Bright beat down a wall with a heavy object. That is not the first time he's done that.
This man is just capable of literally doing, holding people off of the ledge, just beating things down.
He's crazy fella.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which leads us into a sentence I never thought I would say. Malcolm Bright dancing in a sex dungeon.
To that.
There's so much. First of all, shout out to the set design, because it was a very neat set design. If anybody actually saw past Malcolm dancing, you have this metallic gold covered stone painted all around. It gave us definitely kind of your stereotypical 50 Shades of Grey places here and there.
Mm-hmm.
The song choice, and then Tom's just his little let me bounce and jam, and then he's smacking the whip. I was laughing so hard as this scene aired. It blew my mind.
It was literally, this was a scene where it wasn't even Malcolm anymore. This was just Tom doing Tom.
Yes, this is, things have been stressful. Let's have some fun. And so now we have a nail gun and we're dancing. And now it is so funny.
I was losing it in the living room. And by that point, my cousins had gone to bed, and they're at the other end of the house, but not that far away. And I'm expecting to get a message on my phone you good?
Yep.
What is happening? I'm just losing it.
Yep.
And for a split second in this dungeon, when Boyd, we see Boyd, they do this great, the lighting is really cool and all that. And then Boyd appears, super neat moment in terms of camera and all that stuff. But I'll be honest, the writers for about 15 seconds got me, because Boyd says it was you.
Yeah.
And for about 15 seconds, I went, oh, shit. Is he blacking out and doing things? I thought this is where we were going. I thought we were Dextering. He was about to start taking out the serial killers in the place. And I was like, whoa, we are about to take a turn.
Yeah.
So well done, writers. Touche. And I just want to talk for 1 second about how Tom does the same flip that our Brendan Urie did earlier in the episode. He's kind of goofing, he's having fun, he's manic and deranged, but he's hee ha ha, it's all good. And then right about the time he sees that reflection in that mirror, and the music cue does it too, Nathaniel, nicely done, where it's just this bong and the eyes shift.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we are immediately in. I'm calling all of these moments Joker Malcolm.
Yeah.
Because he reminds me so much of like Heath Ledger's Joker, like the creepy smiling and that all kind of stuff. And so it was like a Joker Malcolm flip where like the eyes are turning and he looks like he's gonna straight up come over there and slash you. Like that's a thing.
Wow.
And so it's just so Tom's performance, it's believable that by the time he has that saw and he's headed over to maybe I should kill you, you're like, for the love of God, like what is he gonna do? And then snap, he's immediately out of it when he hears Danny. Oh, hey, what? Hey, I just let him go. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
The other thing he does that so well. Go ahead.
Yeah. The other thing that I had noticed about that was when he picks up the saw, he's like, "Oh, I love these," or he says something like that. And I thought that we were gonna flash back to when he was later cutting up Endicott's body. Like, is there a reason why you're saying that?
At 29:30, my heart fluttered a little when they said police work is patience.
Okay. I had like asterisks all over my page at that point because I'm sorry, The Trip is my favorite episode, and I was so excited that they had that callback there. It was just like, that is like you said, so many callbacks in this episode to things throughout the season. So that just like
like we got fed like the people that have been there from the get-go got fed, just like the newbies were going, what in the hell is going on? Like there were definitely the nuggets of we appreciate you going throughout here, and I really enjoyed that, which leads us to shout out to our editor Britt, the scene that kind of just encapsulates this whole episode, where we have Gil and Danny chatting about Jessica. We have Malcolm and Ainsley talking about kind of the plan that they know that Natalie is not necessarily the murderer, but we're using her as bait. And then we also have Jessica as a solo eavesdropper on the discussion between Gil and Danny. Strictly from a musical standpoint, I think this song, Gaslight by Solomon Gray, is gorgeous. It's a song that focuses heavily on the music a little more so than the lyrics. It's a really short set of lyrics, and they're kind of drawn out throughout the song, but just the way it plays between the different conversations that are happening. And there's a really cool line. It opens with the line, "How long will I be away?" Which I really think fits well with Bright right now. Like, he's not the Bright that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays under him talking to Ainsley, because it's our music supervisors and it's Nathaniel Bloom, we know. Shout out to the music supervisors. I'll come back to y'all in just a minute. That's beautifully edited. And then as Danny is kind of flipping the parental script on Gil in this scene and telling him, look, you were wrong. You screwed up. It almost cost you your life. You are letting your feelings get in the way of your police work. We'll come back to you, Miss Danny Powell, in just a moment. But during that scene, we have the line, which our editor Britt was so stoked about, is that now I'm the parent and you're the child, where she's kind of lecturing him about, you made a mistake. You're the best cop I know, but you can't let this happen. Yeah. And then, of course, while all that discussion is happening, shout out to Bellamy Young, a silent performance that is just beautiful. You see all the different things in her eyes, the emotion, without a single line of dialogue, which I felt was really beautiful on her part. So the next scene, we are in Malcolm's apartment. We find out that the killer, but Tom, which always makes me giggle a little bit when the actor has to say his own name repeatedly.
Say their own name.
Yeah, for some reason that just tickles me. For some reason, like, oh, he had to like yell at this guy a bunch. We find out that the real killer, who is an executioner, is in the apartment with our Tom. And I loved that Malcolm humble brags to the dude that's about to try to kill him. When he's talking about, oh, what century is it? 9th or 10th century? And he's like, 9th, actually, not to be that guy. Like, this dude is talking about the weapon he wants to try to kill you with.
Yes.
And you're still humble bragging about your weapon stash.
It's like, it takes me back to Wait and Hope with the landmine scene where, like, Malcolm's like, good thing I don't have a hand tremor. And then it's Gil, you're making jokes? Like,
yes. I laughed so hard. I'm like, only him in this situation would be like, actually, it's from France and it was blah, blah, blah. But anyway, you were going to kill me. Let's go ahead and finish that discussion. And I love that we have a little kind of funny moment, like, am I giving off murdery vibes? Is it the hair? I love they reference the long hair.
The long hair.
Yes.
That we give him kind of a joke. And of course he's stalling because he knows that he has left this phone on the counter. But it works. It's pretty humorous. In terms of music, I'm gonna have another little moment here. And in this scene, it's like a real quick do 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 do. So your kind of heart rate's up, you know things are going down. And they use that a lot in intense situations on this show. They'll have like the choppy strings happening. But then the minute Malcolm goes into his last words and he starts talking, I always knew that I was kind of like my father. It immediately changes from the chop, chop, chop to the do, 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 do.
Oh my God, Angie!
And
Wow.
we're right into it. Forgive me, I'm not a singer. Okay, forgive me. And no, my Apple computer is like, are you playing music? No, I'm not. But it's beautiful. So we have this intense, score underneath. And the minute we talk about Martin and his metaphorical presence, there's that theme. And it's a pretty version of the theme. It's not the nasty theme we get when Martin's in person. It's very, kind of string and beautiful. And that underlies the entire discussion of him saying, like, I'm like my father, I can't deny it, blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was really cool. I always enjoy those little ticks and moments where it switches like that. It makes me really happy.
Yes. Oh my God.
And you will notice throughout the first season that there are deliberately different versions of the theme with different things Malcolm is doing. If he is complaining or reluctant, you get like a piano, like a soft ballad version, or something like this, where it's kind of sweet, but it's still there.
Yes.
If he's making questionable decisions, or if is he going to kill Endicott? I don't know. Like, then you get the Martin version of the theme. And it's really cool how Bloom plays that out. I mean, he does a great job. And not to mention, there's like thousands of other actual scores that happen throughout. But this particular theme just has its really cool moments as they pop in and out. And it makes me very happy. Which leads us to our next section. Danny, sweetie.
What you doing?
Danny. Hi, we love you, boo. You're amazing. Take your own advice, for God's sakes. Not that I'm complaining. I get that the people you care about can cloud your judgment. Excuse me, let me, as Carol would hate, clear my throat a little.
Please don't. God.
But we just got done lecturing Papa Gill about this, Sweet Pea. And the minute you have no backup, up the stairs we go to help out Bright.
Yep. JT even said, wait for backup, and she goes, I'm going in.
No, because she thinks that Bright is going to be her backup, and it's like, no, you picked the wrong. Oh God.
Which leads me into, and I've already vented to you about this, but I feel like the listeners need to know. I want to see the blueprints of this freaking apartment. I want to know how she went up a freaking outside staircase that is supposed to be a fire escape, and then ended up still outside the apartment and had to come in through the front door. If we're talking logistics, we know that Jessica owns this building. We know it's a snazzy as hell apartment. He has every floor to himself, however many there are. Why is it your fire escape doesn't come in somewhere in the apartment? Like, I feel like we should have heard her come from the bathroom window or from downstairs, like upstairs to downstairs. And we just hear her come through the door. Like, is that not the point of a fire escape, is to have a safety exit that's not your front door? And then they exit later. We talk about that, exit later down the same damn fire escape. Why don't you just go out the front door?
Yeah.
I understand that we need them there for the JT plot line. I get the logistics. However, I'm really confused about the blueprint of this apartment.
We need to know. We could have seen the upstairs.
I feel like, Chris, Sam, writers, if you guys just have a blueprint laying around that explains the fire escape, maybe we shoot it out on social media. Maybe we help out someone with my particular analytical brain that's going a little crazy there. No big deal.
That everybody else is feeling too, I'm sure. At least people like us.
I don't necessarily agree with the hate that Danny is getting in this scene for the whole drop the weapon, pointing the gun at Malcolm.
People are upset at her over this. I literally, goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. I can't. I'm leaving. Oh God.
We could have a whole podcast on my belief of some of the stuff that kind of gets said about Danny. I'm not going to go there. But honestly, she has been watching Malcolm slip into his own personal version of just a complete dumpster fire circus.
Yeah.
And she watched him practically buzzsaw a dude in the dungeon. It is not outrageous for her to point her gun at him when he has a weapon at a man's head.
Yep.
You know, maybe she had absolutely no intention of shooting, but to say that, like, why could she possibly do this? She doesn't know what he's going to do these days. I love Bright as much as the next person.
Yeah.
But he is on the edge.
Yeah.
And he's shown that he makes rash decisions that have an impact on people. Granted,
Like chopping off
the
the hands.
ends. Yes. Granted that the ends was not entire, was for a good reason, but so like his means justifies his end justifies the means.
There you go.
And but like she knows he's used something to hurt another human, like he's capable of it.
Shout out to the fact that we actually let Tom Paine do a couple stunts. We let the man roll across a desk.
Yes.
Woo!
And play with weapons.
And I've talked 1,000 times all over the place about the fact that he was criminally underused on The Walking Dead. Now, thank the Lord, because we got him.
Yep.
It all worked out, and he now gets to be one on the call sheet, as well deserved. But I mean, this man has abilities. I understand that from an insurance standpoint, now he's the lead, especially the lead during COVID. We need to be careful with him. He is precious and must be protected at all costs. But at the same time, and I'm sure maybe he feels the same way a little bit, like, let him flex a little bit of that, like, look what I can do.
Yeah.
Because most of us in the fandom have seen the videos of his, like, martial arts training and things that he did. Like, he can roll over a desk without pulling a disc. He can probably work that out. So I appreciated that. I was like, okay, for sure. We knew that was him. You could tell the hair was flopping. It was a whole thing, which leads us into the first part of this scene with JT. We've kind of decided that we're going to focus on kind of the logistics of it and the artistic side of it. And then we'll come back to the kind of thoughts on it as a whole in terms of a storyline. JT is in the alleyway. He is getting ready to go up to try to help them before he has a chance to show the beat cops that kind of come as backup that, hey, I am the commanding officer right here. There's some assumptions made based on his race, and he is kind of immediately pushed up against the wall, clubbed to the neck, and he does not have the opportunity to show his badge and explain, and he's not being listened to. So it was definitely kind of a nerve-wracking moment. I wasn't worried that we were going to lose the character, I didn't have the are they going to kill him? I was not that panicked. But I'll be honest, it definitely hit me harder than I expected. I was kind of emotionally like, wow, this is really intense. And from a production side of it, it is a gorgeous scene. And please understand what I mean by that. There's rain falling, which always looks nice on camera. The lighting is the gorgeous, flashing of the lights, which, red and blue, and then is purple in places. And there's, if you don't know, on production, a lot of times they will wet surfaces outside anyway. They'll wet streets, they'll wet brick sides of buildings because they look more pleasant wet than kind of that ashy mortar color when they're really dry and hot. So you have just this aesthetically pleasing scene, which is such a juxtaposition to the content of the scene itself, which just is grating on your emotions and your eyes. So that I loved. I loved Frank's portrayal in that moment, which of course we can talk about other things later too. But you can tell that he is just completely terrified.
Yeah.
As well he should be. And I really liked, I've spoken to you guys this too, the way they played Bright's kind of what the hell is going on as he comes down the stairs.
Yes.
That there was that kind of privilege moment of what in the hell are you, why did this ever happen?
Yeah.
And Danny's right behind him going, no, because she knows.
Yes.
He absolutely knows. And then it clicks for Bright. He's not slow by any means. It did not take him long to process that.
No.
But within seconds, you can see in Tom, oh my God. And Danny is wait. And that was just more to come on that.
The thing that my brain kept latching onto in that scene was the absolute fear in Danny's voice.
Yeah.
She wasn't yelling wait, wait. No, she was like, wait. Like
Mhm.
very fast and absolutely panicked. This is coming from an actress who, you know, has experienced this. So like, I feel like that wasn't acting in that moment. Like that, she didn't have to.
You don't have to dig deep for that.
Yeah, she didn't have to dig deep.
Yeah.
Like she didn't really have to act to do that. It was just like, you know, bring out your experiences and there's your emotion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which leads into the scene where we have JT just absolutely frantic in the conference room. He knows how things like this tend to go. And there's so much about this scene that every time I rewatched it, I found something new. The first time was absolutely just Frank's performance. I mean, watching our resident tough guy shed tears, he's panicked. And it just hits you right in the heart, you know, it hurts. And then multiple other times I watched and I see Malcolm, who is just a deer in headlights. Like, what have I just witnessed?
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, you know, like he's obviously never experienced something like that. So, and then you watch Danny, who's just fuming in the background. We got you. This is not going to happen. She's right versus wrong, and we will fix it. And JT has already decided, I'm done. Like this, you know, game over. Because, I mean, statistically, he's not wrong.
Yeah. And I think also in terms of Danny, the way that I had interpreted that, yeah, she is like the textbook, like, oh no, this is fine. But I think that it's also, she's using it as a coping mechanism because she's also terrified. And so she's using this like, there's no way you're okay. Because she also knows that statistically this can end bad. And so she's comforting both JT and herself because
sure,
they're all, I mean, she's beside herself right now too, as much as JT is. And Bright too, who is like showing his white boy privilege.
Obviously Bright is like, oh my God. But at the same time, you can tell that he's like, I can't believe this is a real, like, I just witnessed this in front of my face. We'll come back to this. You know, we have some comments on this later, but we're going to go ahead and move on for just a second. At 42:13, I found my second mirror image moment. I'm kind of wondering if Carol got this. I'm kind of stoked if she does. So we're back. Malcolm has gone back to visit Martin, and we get a little bit more detailed flashback about the things that he did, about him saying we're going to have to dismember him using the saw. And there is a moment where he uses the saw and his face gets splattered, which happens in the pilot. He gets blood splattered in the pilot on his face. And I kind of love that we had already had that bookend moment from earlier. And then we see this, and these moments are just so drastically different. They're not identical by any means. The first time he's on the side of good, he's absolutely outraged that this could happen. Why would this guy do this? And then now here he is, the source of it, or a complicit source of it. At this point, he gets the blood splatter. He kind of wipes it off, and it's literally the blood is on his hands. I mean, come on, could we be more symbolic? I mean, it's on the nose. But I really loved that. I loved the way that we kind of have now come full circle, and now he's got blood on his face because it's part of what he's doing. I cannot, you know, a shout out again. I did not shout them out by name, but I will now to Susan Kent and Gabe Hilfer, who are our music supervisors. They're the people that pick the lyric based music. And sometimes, you know, it's written in the script and something that the writers really push. We need to find this particular song, but a lot of times it's on them, and they've done a gorgeous job. So many great moments in season 1 with the songs that are just, you know, as you said, chef's kiss. But the use of Don't Fear the Reaper here. First of all, the cover is gorgeous. I loved it. And much like some other people, for a split second, I was like, is this Jen Ackerman? Like, I thought, did we use Tom's wife? Is she here again? But then I realized after a little bit, since I have all of her stuff and I'm kind of a super freak for her music, I was like, okay, no, it's not, but gorgeous. And there are so many lines in that song that fit as well. Like just the line itself, don't fear the Reaper. Like that is literally what Malcolm fears right now, is the consequences of everything that he has done to cover this up. And so while it's like, oh, hey, cool cover, blah, 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 like it's very symbolic, like it fits that moment. And I'm a big fan of having like these crazy outlandish moments visually with these just like ballad and slow, beautiful songs where they offset. Like he's chopping someone up with a saw. blood is spraying everywhere, and it's this very mellow, chill version of Don't Fear the Reaper, and that was very, very gorgeous. Not that I'm shocked with our team, but very gorgeous.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the wrap up. It wraps up with, you know, you think Martin's going to do something sweet, which, shocker, here's our typical Martin sandwich. You know, he's come here, I want to hold your hand, and then he says thank you in this real snarky way. So you're like, what's he going to do? Like, what's he going to do to hurt Malcolm? Then it becomes a genuine thank you for saving my daughter. I'm so grateful. Tom's performance with the watery eyes, the whole thing is beautiful. And then, of course, you know, to end your kind of DB sandwich that is Martin Whitley, it becomes, well, maybe you're having trouble because you liked it. Maybe you like that you got away with it. And just darned if we're not back to screwing with our boy's head as per usual. And that, I mean, that wraps up the episode. That's it. That was a whole jam-packed bonanza of crazy.
So, speaking of long ago, that giveaway, our code word for this giveaway is Gilly, otherwise known as the name that our dear washed up band member gave to his pet guillotine.
That's right. So Gilly, Gilly. And just to recap, don't forget, you will tweet that out. You will put it out on your Instagram, and make sure that you tag us on both of those platforms. We are at Podcast C.S.A. If you do that anytime between now and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, we will put you in for a drawing to get some of our really cool Prodigal Son swag.
And you want it.
Oh, you want it. It's amazing. These aren't pencils and pens, people. We got the good stuff, let me just say. Oh, the fan profile dub, Britt. Hello. My God.
Just completely.
I love you, Boo. I love you,
editor.
Britt. I love you so much. I love you to the moon.
We need to suck up after that.
Right, so now that brings us to our fan profile of the week. And some people had some questions and we're kind of a little bit unsure about how this worked. Basically, all you have to do is go to our social media platforms. We have links to a Google form questionnaire, and we call it our fan profile naturally because of our boy Malcolm. And we really wanted to highlight the fans because we feel like this is an amazing fandom to be a part of. We have such creative and talented people out there. You can fill this out and only kind of get a verbal shout out, and we'll give you some love on the different things you create. And if you want to share your social media handles and things, we'll definitely do that. You have an opportunity to potentially join in as a guest for your segment if you would like to, not a requirement by any means. But I mean, if you want to, we would love to have some extra voices on here to chit chat with for a little while. That'd be super neat, but it's not a requirement. So for those of you that might not be comfortable with that, not something you would have to do. And there is a question on that form regarding if you would want to. So since we're a little shy on the number of responses so far, because there were some questions there, we decided that this week we were going to highlight one of our own, and that is our glorious editor, Miss Brittany Jackson, who you guys know as Tinker Brit.
Woo!
Yes, amen. Let's clap it up for Tinker Brit, our woman behind the scenes. So just a couple things to know about her. First of all, if you don't know her and you like videos about your show, you have come to the right place. All right. As of the recording of this, she has 37 Prodigal Son videos on YouTube.
That'll probably
and they range
go up in a few days.
From lovey and mushy to, you know, deep and depressing and you're about to cry, to crack videos full of hysterical nonsense and Hamilton references to Prodigal Son. I mean, she hits all the gambits. And most recently, this week, our girl made a video about Danny and about JT, and she weaved in these beautiful, like, all the names of people that have, you know, died unjustly, whether it was police brutality, other situations, racial injustice issues. Weaved it through this episode with the things that happened in this episode. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful. She's getting a ton of love from producers, from the cast, you know, writers, everyone and their mother on this show is just so proud of her, as we are, obviously, as well. And just giving her so much love. It's really, really amazing. I definitely recommend you check it out. That particular video is called two of the best, which is one of Gil's quotes about JT and Danny. I asked her what her top 4 videos were. I don't know why I picked the number 4. I did. And she said that was like picking her 4 favorite children, that it was a very difficult decision for her to do. But she begrudgingly gave me a short list. And she did not include this week's video because she's like, you're going to talk about it anyway. So her top videos of hers were the story of Brightwell, the story of Danny Powell, Malcolm's Crying, and 8 Letters. So if you want to look at the ones that the legend herself have said are the top of the top, that's where you would probably start. On all of her platforms, she goes by Tinkerbrit, like Tinkerbell, but with a Brit on the end, and it is a 3-T'd Brit. So make sure you have 3 T's there if you're looking for her. And honestly, I mean, we're just blessed to have her as our editor. She's amazing. She's a great gal. And we're very grateful and proud of all those accomplished. So hats off to our fan profile of the week, Miss Brittany Jackson, which kind of leads into my own personal thoughts on this situation. So we are a drama that is very amazingly filled and front loaded in the lead characters with people of color. And they also happen to be police officers, which I think is a rare and unique viewpoint for this particular issue. I know it is a divisive issue, and I know right now there are sections of the fandom that are talking, jumping ship and stuff like that. And I guess, to each their own, if that's the case. I will try to be as politically correct as possible. It is very hard for me to do that in this situation. I absolutely want to say to those people, how dare you harass our actors over it? Just, again, I will censor. I'm a teacher, so I will censor and make sure I am not saying what's going through my head right now. But how dare people attack our actors of color who, by the way, Aurora, not even 2 weeks ago, got profiled at her own damn apartment, and they wouldn't let her in because, God forbid, she be a Black woman in that nice apartment building. This is happening. We're talking days ago to actors and actresses. Not the poorest people in the projects, which of course it's happening there too, but it's happening to them as well. She is on one of the top rated television shows from last season, and this happened to her. So let's not pretend that it doesn't exist. Okay. I feel like that phrase, like the I don't see color, kind of came from a good place originally. Like I really think that's not helpful.
No.
Anyway, I know that a lot of people try to say that in a way that leads, well, I don't see color. Well, no, we do see color. We acknowledge that there are differences, and we embrace those differences, and we try to help those differences. So again, I think we have a really unique perspective. I am very interested in how, we kind of have people that are on opposing sides in one character. For example, like JT, who this has now happened to him. He has been a victim of police brutality, but he's a cop. Like this is a very, I don't want to say cool because I feel like that makes light of the situation, but it is a very intriguing perspective that I don't know that there's another show that would give us that. My final thought, and again, I will try to filter as best as possible, is to those of you that feel like this is political, it is absolutely not political. There are no politics in racism. It happens. There is no one political side thinks and one political side doesn't. It happens. Facts are facts. Fossils are fossils. They prove we have dinosaurs. Statistics on this are statistics. And
thank you, teacher.
Facts and opinions are not interchangeable.
And I get it. I'm white. I have never experienced this. It is kind of uncomfortable to see white people doing that. I don't like to see those videos. I don't like to see that happening. But do I watch it? I do. Because I need to understand that this is not my experience, but it is absolutely someone else's experience. And the way that you have compassion and empathy is to try to understand their experience. You don't get annoyed that, ooh, this makes me uncomfortable. You try to work. And it may not be you. I hope for every reason that it is not you acting that way and saying those things, but that doesn't mean that we cannot acknowledge it, acknowledge that I am not going through your experience, and I want to do something to make it right.
Exactly.
And honestly, to the people that are trying to jump ship and say, I'm never going to watch this show again, Frankly, it's laughable to me that we have had corks in people's necks, we have chopped off people's hands, we've been in sex dungeons, but this is the particular moment that you have chosen to say,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna watch this.
Yeah.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
On that note, we will be back next week, as always, with another new episode. The crew, the trio, as it were, will be alive and kicking. We
Mhm.
hope you enjoyed it. Let us know, like and subscribe. Send us some comments, give us some reviews, let us know what you think, and fill out that fan profile. If you want to get a shout out, just like we did for Brit, or if you want to maybe be a part of it, let us know.
Mhm.
Until then, we will catch you later. So farewell, guys. It's been
All
real.
right. Bye-bye.